Hi all and welcome back to my channel of An Everyday Life with Asby. If you're new, I welcome you all. I'm Asby. I'm all about creating mental health and awareness and sharing my life story with Asperger's syndrome and the like, along with advocating, educating you all based on this and more, as well as mental health, as well as hopefully sharing with you some fun and games along the way while you're journeying with me with my content. So it has been brought to my attention right now as read autistic, allistic, neurodivergence. What is the topic today? I want to address this right now because obviously at this point of time, many of us autistics gets labelled as different things as normal people out there that doesn't have autism, and I want to hopefully just clarify it up a bit so that hopefully in saying this that we don't get any confusion or misunderstandings between the autistic community and the community out there that ain't autistic, so that hopefully we can respect one another's differences of opinion. So as we know, basically, like now and again, we tend to question ourselves, what's the right way to address ourselves in the autistic community, right? I'm sure that many of us autistics have that sort of question to ask ourselves, as well as maybe just you normal people around us when it comes down to it. I want to, like I said, to hope that we can be familiar with all this, because like there has been a lot of questions raising above this, like terminology that gets so confusing once in a while, hearsay as well by it all. So perhaps, like I said, it's about time I'll address it to you guys that are new or that has been with me, journeying with me, so that we can just accept one another's differences of opinion, hopefully, hearsay as well. I'm assuming at this point, while you've been journeying with me, however, that you should know the term so well about the word autistic that has come out, what it means in a general way for people on there, as well as the terminology autism spectrum disorder that I clearly address what is autism spectrum disorder, which will be linked above me while you're doing this, so feel free to click that before continuing watching this if you wish. Some of you guys, not all viewers, I'm not going to prejudge, may still have basically or hold some form of misconception about the everyday life of an autistic, you know, how they live their life and how they may label it, but it's all in due cause that we're in a learning process together, be it autistic or not, hearsay, I reckon. I have heard many of us autistic voices, or been reading some of the autistic voices, either here on the blog I have got, also on WordPress, or even just maybe through YouTube, if you know some that you're really supporting and admire right now. I just hopefully while teaching you or educating today, we can learn from it, and also in saying this, that it will matter, because obviously many people may say what, Karen, or shall we say what, SB, are you nuts right now? Who cares? You're the only one that cares about it. And I hear maybe many people will say to me time and time again, by it out on the street, or via sometimes when I get some of the comments listed below. As you are aware, I have been using the word terminology or word neurotypical, or as it's abbreviated down to NT, which stands for neurologically typical or neurotypical, depending on what context you're using it in, past or present hearsay, which is a neologism that has been widely used in the autistic community for quite some time now as a label for people who are not high on the autistic spectrum, hearsay. And just to be a note also, I'm not trying to consider sometimes now, after doing my research, that I'm hoping to address to you all, even though it's running of light, about basically autism and camouflaging autism spectrum condition, so that we can hope for the best, that we don't offend anyone that feels sick of that word disorder to the point that will rattle some feathers. So please forgive me on this front. But back to this though, and for this NT, it's in its original usage, usually it is referred with person, obviously, with not autism or what have you, right? So you'll be thinking, well, what's the case here? Because obviously in saying this, its original usage was basically referred to anyone who's not autistic or a cousin with an autistic-like trait or autistic-like brain. However, in this case, the term was the latter. However, that was narrowed down to referring to those with strictly typical neurology, that is, without a defined neurological difference. In other words, however, to what I'm saying, this refers to anyone who doesn't have any developmental disorders or disabilities whatsoever, such as autism, developmental coordination disorder, or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. The term was later adopted by both the neurodiversity movement and the scientific community. In recent times, however, people have come to terms with any sort of mental disability, whether congenital or acquired, have also sometimes have excluded from the neurotypical label. In this sense, however, the term is now contrasted to the terminology that I am going to maybe start addressing, as I shared with somebody while someone's talked about the word neurotypical, neurodivergent, or ND, or neurotypical, for some of you that may want to gladly accept. So let me know if you want to be accepted as that as well. An umbrella term that is inclusive of people with diverse mental and behavioural behaviours and social construction of disabilities that comes into that play method of those models. And in distance from the hegemonic medical model that may have been replaced right now of disabilities, others known in the neurodiversity community as the pathology paradigm are often referred to as neurodivergences, that is, neurotypes that are divergent from a given social and medical norm. Neurotypical, however, is a specific term for its original purpose and use within the autistic communities, has been replaced by some with the terms allistic or typical, atypical, which is roughly has the same meaning as those that are neurotypical that has originally been used in those community groups. These terms refer to those who aren't autistic and who do not possess another pervasive developmental disorder, however, even if they may be neurological atypical in some other way, such as having dyslexia or some other form of learning disability. The National Autistic Society in the United Kingdom, however, used the term neurotypical in its advancement to journalists. You will notice, however, some days I will use the term autistic rather than the person with autism, or I have been using it for quite some time throughout my blogs or vlogs, wherever you may have found me. That's fine. This is intentional. The basic idea for my being as being an autistic with many means of basically the patterns my brain forms certain different thought patterns and the essentials of the way I perceive the world and learn from the world as a person with Asperger's syndrome, or as I call myself, an ASB in this case. Autisticness, for me, saying I am with autism may deny that fact or reality, however. There are many other brilliant writers out there who have addressed autistics versus non-person for the person first language in more depth though. A key example here would be the one by the name of Jim Sinclair. One of the autistic community's elders wrote a piece in 1999 on the issue, which you can read on Cafe Mon. Many others have echoed and expanded upon Jim's thoughts since then. However, Lydia over at Identity First Language and a number of posts on Person First Language, including the significance of semiotics, Person First Language, why it matters, which ends with a list of links to other writers on the issue at hand. Some people's constructions of how they phrase their identity are very as unique and true to them, regardless what they want to be called. People with autism, autistic, allistic, and the list goes on, right? Some are either as well political, and a good number of both political and personal. I have a mixture of phrasing for myself, as I've said to you guys, regardless what I call myself, be it me as an ASB or what have you. I've also referred myself basically sometimes allistic other than non-allistic, because obviously, as you know, non-allistic is known for people that's not on the spectrum. But, or on the other hand, many people may think, would it be just be called non-autistic? So this is why it gets a bit confusing. Some people use neurotypical this way, but I'll get to why maybe in the moment to now why I'm choosing to disagree on that phrase, neurotypical, or what it means. It doesn't mean someone is intrinsically better or worse, and it doesn't indicate allyhood or opponenthood. It just means that someone is not autistic. Allistic, however, is a term that members of the autistic community has come up with as well, Well, the earliest mention I can find was from 2003 of zephyrumfish.org that has constructed to work in a parody of the world around us. Of this word construction makes a lot more sense to all of us. So much so, in fact, that Zephyrum's work isn't known to many community members now using the term. In Zephyrum's postscript, however, it has explained that the construction mechanism of this is based on the way that the word autistic has been used and constructed. Aulism, invented for this article, is intended to precisely complement the term autism. It's based on the Greek word allos, meaning other, as autos in autism means self in Greek. This explanation of aulistic's construction continues to be in use today. As some might note, the relative constructions of autistic and allistic are not dissimilar to the relationship between the words transgender and cisgender, even if the alternative words developed to suit the needs of politically charged parody. Allistic is linguistically a more accurate term, however, used than some of the alternatives. Neurotypical is often used interchangeably with allistic as well, but I would have to say that I would argue or disagree that it isn't usually interchangeable. Neurotypical is short for neurologically typical, as mentioned earlier, within the typical range for human neurology. Obviously, it wouldn't make sense to that someone was definitely atypical. Neurology was neurologically typical just because of their atypical nature, wasn't that they were autistic. Indeed, the neurotypical neurodiverse terminology has been adopted by certain segments of the mental health consumers, mental health team, and survivors community for this very reason. Ongoing usage aside, however, from what I can recall of the initial usage was one that is synonymous with the current term allistic, between the acceptance of autistic cousins, those who aren't autistic, but who have similarities, including those with ADHD, as mentioned earlier, and the penetration of the term beyond the initial communities, it swiftly became used more diversely. Eventually, the more diverse and in my mindset, however, accurate usage meant, in this case, that a more accurate term for non-autistic was needed. Which brings us back to the word autistic. Neurodiverse can have two different meanings here, depending on what it is talking about. When referring to individuals, however, it simply means that the individuals in question have neurologies that are neurologically atypical, aka that aren't neurotypical. So this quickly ends basically a short brief overview of what I hope to address to you all of autistic, allistic, neurodivergent, say what. Hopefully you enjoy this. Comment below if any of you have heard of these terms and what would you prefer to be called, especially for the ones maybe on the autistic community that may have come on my channel once in a while supporting me, or just someone that you know of that, you know, prefers a term that's better. No arguments here, but it's just recordance of acceptance of difference of opinion here, as I said. I'm hoping this has been useful though. For those that are interested though, however, also in saying this, for more information about the origins of certain aspects of autistic culture, I recommend for you guys, as I said, reading Jim Sinclair's History of A and I, which documents the early days of the autistic cultural movement through the establishment of AUTREAT. So, if you like this, smash the like, comment below. Feel free to also share these videos around. Feel free to also, as I said before, so many times before, if you feel to, you know, support me, feel free to, if you want to donate or what have you, also through the Patreon account that I've set up 2 months ago. Also in saying this, also it should go to a great cause for me to continue on what I love doing, which is advocating, mentoring to you guys, either through videos or hopefully getting the courage to speak to people out in the community and support others, either through the autistic community versus the mental health community.